City of Springfield reaching a record-breaking milestone this year, now at 28 homicides as of Tuesday night. And several of those cases have been resolved by Springfield Police and the Hampden District Attorney's Office, with suspects identified and taken into custody. Amanda Callahan is getting answers on how many of them are repeat offenders and how the city's police department is responding.
The question is, why was he out? And the answers don't make sense to me either.
28 homicides in Springfield so far this year, a record-breaking number for the city, the latest deadly shooting happening just a few days ago. 16 cases have been resolved by the Springfield Police Department and the Hampden DA's office, meaning suspects have been identified and taken into custody.
More than half have some sort of a record, and we're doing a good job here. We have many murders that are cleared, but we clear them, we do a good job, and then we go to the families and say, it shouldn't have happened in the first place.
And now we're digging deeper into their criminal histories, getting answers from Springfield Police Superintendent Cheryl Clapprood on how the city is responding.
We see people who are definitely a danger to society, to their families, to neighborhoods, that need to be held until their case is heard. And then if the evidence shows that this person committed that crime, we'd like to see longer incarceration periods, protect the neighborhoods, protect the families and the innocent people, and keep that person incarcerated.
While 2 of the fatal incidents were determined to be self-defense, according to court documents obtained by Western Mass News, 9 of those 28 homicides involve suspects who have been behind bars before.
But the second time somebody is committing a crime with a firearm, or somebody's shooting at somebody, and they show total disregard, or there's a carjacking, that person needs to get into the system.
1/3 of those 9 suspects were arrested for what Clapprood defines as repeat violent offenses, which she believes should require them to be held longer. Lesh Marie Morin Vieira is accused of a fatal stabbing on Liberty Street back on January 29th. Iran Martinez is accused of a double shooting on School Street in June that took one man's life. Tyree Shakespeare is accused of a double shooting, killing a man and injuring a woman in June. But Clapprood tells Western Mass News, even if it's not a violent crime, suspects need to be held responsible for their actions after they are arrested to break the pattern.
We have done our job. The women and men in the police department are out there and they're making the arrests, they're gathering the evidence, they're proving the cases. And meanwhile, while we're doing that, they've ruined another life, another family, another situation. And it's so frustrating for us.
Several of the other repeat offenders in these murder cases facing previous charges in connection to drugs and illegal guns, including Rafael Calo is one of the suspects in the murder on Belmont Street in March, along with the other suspect, Christina Guzman. The accused shooter from the State Street murder on June 19th, Michelle Perez Cruz. Thomas Whitlock, the suspect in the Leland Drive murder in August. Victor Nieves, the now deceased suspect in connection to the Berkshire Ave double homicide in August. And Eduardo de Jesus, the suspect in the Hancock Street fatal shooting from August, had previously faced larceny charges. Another trend Clapprood has seen in the city, an uptick in young people committing crime. Clapprood says younger suspects need to face harsher consequences to potentially lead them down a different path.
If they're brave enough at 13 to hold and fire a gun, then we have to teach them the consequences of doing that and responsibility if they want to live to be 14. So if we, with kid gloves, treat the 13, 14, 15-year-old because they carjacked somebody, and again, we're talking violent crimes, not larceny or shoplifting, but if they're already committing a violent crime at 13, we have a problem with that individual.
Reporting in Springfield, Amanda Callahan, Western Mass News.
The Springfield Police Department and the Hampden DA's office have not yet identified the suspect or suspects in Tuesday's homicide, which could add to the list of repeat offenders.